Hi, hello, vanakkam, and welcome to day 4. So far, actually, we have learned how to write the YAML syntax. We worked with different data types as in the second section, like we worked with different data types on what are the data types like, for example, the strings, the numbers, the booleans, null. And after that, we worked on the mappings and the listings as well. So if you really have to do a recap, please you can watch my old videos. And now coming back to this one on the day 4, we're going to learn the technique that actually makes YAML more efficient and more maintainable. So, and that is through anchors, aliases, and mainly to reuse it. So and again, this is a very practical skill because the real YAML often contains the repeated patterns. For example, instead of you copying and pasting the same configuration block multiple times, all we can do is we can actually use the anchors. That is the examples that you see here. We're going to anyways discuss that. But you can use anchors to define it once and then you can reference it whenever we need it. This is going to save us time. This is going to make files easier to maintain. One thing is, so why should we use the anchors? Why not the repetition here? Why don't we repeat it? So just imagine, so you're writing a Docker compose file with 3 services, and each service needs the same network settings, the same logging configuration, the same resource limits, right? So they're all same, but it is for 3 services. And if you write each one from scratch, so we will end up with a lot of repeated code, right? And this creates 2 problems. Firstly, the file becomes larger and it is harder to read, harder to maintain. And secondly, if you need to change one of those shared settings, you have to update in all the 3 places or even more places. So that is error prone and it is very tedious. So anchors that we see here, anchors and aliases solve this problem by letting us defining a block once and then we can reuse it whenever we need it. So what is an anchor? So we were talking about anchor, we were talking about repeatability, reusability. So what is an anchor basically? So an anchor is a marker that you place on a block of content. So the anchor has a name and it starts with the ampersand symbol. So this is a anchor. So this starts with the ampersand symbol. So it has a name and it starts with the ampersand symbol. So anytime when someone asks you what is an anchor or uh, where do you place an anchor in a content is. So anchor has a name. Like for example, here it's defaults and it starts with the ampersand symbol. So when you define an anchor, you are saying that to the code, to the system, that is remember this block of content and I may want to use again. So that is what we are telling. For example, we might want to write an anchor called defaults, like here, the example here, like defaults that contains a common set of settings. The syntax looks like this. So defaults and ampersand defaults, which is this is going to be an anchor. And the ampersand tells YAML that this is an anchor and the default is the name that you give it, right? Now, what is an alias? So we were talking about anchor previously. Now, what is an alias? So alias is a reference to a anchor, right? So it lets you to reuse the content that was marked by anchor. So anchor is a block of content, right? So in this case, this defaults, right? So this defaults and anything that comes in it is a anchor. And alias is I can use it wherever I want it, right? And it's again going to be a reference to an anchor. So it lets us to create or it lets us to reuse the content that was marked by the anchor. Okay, and then the alias starts with the asterisk symbol. So two things: the anchor starts with the ampersand, the alias starts with the asterisk symbol. Okay, and then the anchor name. So for example, the star defaults, right? So this is an alias that refers to the defaults anchor. So the name is going to be the same thing, but instead of an ampersand, if you use the asterisk, it turns into a yes alias. So when YAML sees an alias, so when you see it and when you find, so how does YAML finds or identify it as an alias is anything that starts with asterisk is an alias. Okay, and it copies the entire content from the anchor. So now when I call this, so the service A, we'll have a image nginx and we'll have a replica of 1, right? And then again, for example, here even in this example, so the start defaults is an alias that refers to the defaults anchor. So when the YAML sees the alias, so it copies the entire content from the anchor to that location. This means you write the settings once and YAML automatically duplicates them whenever or wherever you use that alias. Fine. So how the merge key works, right? So the merge key is a special operator. So when I'm talking about merge key, this is this two less than symbol, right? So less than symbol. So this is again a special character that combines the anchored content with the current mapping. So the syntax, this double less than. So when you use it along with the alias, that is this star asterisk thing, it merges all the fields from the anchor into the current object. So when you use this less than, I mean double less than, that is what we call it as the merge key. When you use this along with this alias, what it does or what the YAML does is it merges all the fields from the anchor into the current object. For example, if a default anchor contains an image, so here yes, it does contain an image and it does contain a replica, right? So what it does is, and again when we use this merge key with alias in a new service, and the service will get those same fields plus any new fields that we add. So here if I add any new field at the bottom of this service, that also will be added on top of my image and replicas, right? So that's so simple. So three things here: anything that starts, not anything but anything that starts with ampersand is your anchor, anything that starts with asterisk is your alias, and again this merge key, this double less than symbol, this will merge the value into the another mapping. And this is what I've defined here. So what this does, so this will define an anchor. So when I say define an anchor, I can give whatever I want to give, like for example the image, the replicas, and whatever I want to give. And this asterisk default, that is the alias, will reuse the anchored block, and then this double less than symbol will merge the value into another mapping. Just three things, and it's so simple. Okay, now let's come to the practical example. Let me show you a real quick example. So imagine we have a common configuration for all our services, and that is here. So I have got a defaults, ampersand defaults. So that's going to be an anchor, and I've got images, nginx latest with two replicas, and then even the environment details is also given. So log level is info, environment is production. So now, if we want to create two services using this configuration, we can write like this. So web service with the merge key, with the alias defaults. So the name of this web service is going to be web service port number 8080. But on top of this, since I've used this alias thing, so every information, like every component here, the image, the replicas, the log level, environment, everything will be copied to the defaults. Same applies to the API service as well. So what did we do here? So we have got three items here. One is the uh, anchor, the alias, the merge key. So three items, and everything will be taken from the anchor to the places where we have got the alias, and we are also merging those values into another mapping. Okay. Now, when the YAML processes this file, when YAML is processing this entire file, it merges the fields from the default anchor, that is from this defaults, into each service. So the web service ends up with the image, the replicas, the environment, name, port, everything comes into the web service and the API service. So the API service get the same thing with its own name and the own port, right? So why this matters? So we even discussed in the very beginning. So this is technique will save you a lot of time, and it makes the YAML files much easier to maintain. So if you want to make any changes, all you have to going to do is, like for example, if you want another environment, all you can do is just create an environment here, and that's going to replicate. So for example, for production you'll have two replicas, but for dev, for staging, or for any other environment, all we do is just one. And you can also define the environment here. So production comes with two replicas, stage comes with one, dev comes with one. So again, you can also increase or decrease the log level as well, right? So everything can be designed here. So in a very large infrastructure, like files or deployment configuration, so we often have many repeated patterns. So using anchors and aliases will keep those patterns consistent and will make the updates easier. For example, if you need to change the Docker image version or the log level, as I told you, so Docker image version here or the log level, which can be info, warning, error, critical, whatever it is, we can change it. So all you just do is just update the anchor, right? So all the services that references it will automatically get the new settings. Fine. So some common use cases, let me tell you about the anchors and aliases. So anchors and aliases are especially useful when you have a Docker Compose file with multiple services that share the settings, and when you have a Kubernetes manifest where multiple objects need the same specifications, or when you have a CI/CD pipeline files where multiple jobs share the same runner or environment settings. Even we can do that as well. And when you have a Ansible playbook where multiple tasks use the same parameters, right? So some of the cautions I'll tell you, even I've told you the common use cases, but some cautions and best practices. So even though we know that the anchors are very powerful, like you can reuse them, they can also make the files harder to understand. So if it has been overused, okay, so it is very tempting to anchor every block, but the thing is, it actually makes the file harder to read. So please use anchors only when a block is genuinely repeated and when the reuse makes the file clearer. Also, remember that anchors are only valid within a single YAML file. So if you define it here and if you want to take it to another file, it's not going to work that way. Anything that the anchors and aliases, the merge key, everything work in the same file. So you cannot reference an anchor from another file, and each file is processed independently. And again, another best practice is to choose very clear descriptive anchor names. So instead of using generic names like data, one, or block, use names like defaults, shared environments, common ports, right? Very a meaningful name. So that makes the file self-documenting. And again, before we complete, let's go with a quick practice. So let's create a YAML file, right? So let's create a YAML file. That's which is going to represent a small infrastructure setup. So all we're going to do is we are going to define, let me just, before that, let me just create a file. So practice or demo. So all we're going to do is we're going to create, in fact, let me just add that. So we're going to create a YAML file, right? The small infrastructure setup. So we're going to define a shared configuration anchor that includes common fields such as image. So we're going to have image replicas, one or two, either one or two, and then an environment directory, environment dictionary, right? And then we can create three services that uses the shared configuration through the merge key, and each service should have its own unique name and port. Okay, fine. So, are you ready to start with me? Fine. So let's start it. So as I told you, we're going to create a YAML file, and we're going to share the image, replica, environment dictionary, and three services. So let's start with the very first one. I'm going to start with a shared underscore config colon. So anything that starts with ampersand is your anchor. Shared config. We have to be very careful about the indentations. So uh, I'll start. So shared config image. Sorry, image my app colon v 1.0. So I'm creating an image. So that's going to be reused across every uh, service. And I've got three replicas and then the environment. So environment will be followed in the list. So environment will have the log level colon. So never use equals, right? And then the environment. Here it is staging. I'm going to use staging across for all my services, and then my debug mode. So debug underscore mode colon, never use equals, true. So this is going to be a string value. Fine. Then let's move on to the next one, that is the web underscore service, right? So here I'm going to use the merge key, right? Okay. And for merge key, star will give me the alias power. So shared, I'm calling my shared underscore config followed by the name. So firstly, I'm going to start the web service followed by the port number with 8080 followed by the description, which is main web application. Now the next service, that is API service, or even I can create an app service as well, right? So no one is going to stop me. Fine. And the same thing, the merge key followed by alias shared config. I'm going to call my anchor shared config, the name followed by API underscore service, and then the port number, which is 3000, and then the description. Yes, that is to differentiate between one to the other. REST API service followed by worker underscore service. Same thing, merge key, delete, colon. Let's call the alias, sorry, the alias. Yes, I'm right. So shared config again, and then the name is going to be the worker, worker underscore service, the port number, which is 9000, followed by description, and that's going to be my background worker service, right? So that's again the practical one that we wanted to do. And now let's move on to the next one. So again, let me quickly explain you. So how does this solution work? The very first section that we started here is the anchor, which we called it as shared config. So the ampersand before the name marks it as an anchor, and this block contains three fields: image, replicas, and the environment. And the environment is a has a list of values in it. So anytime when you are defining the list, and this is how it works. Finally, the image field, which specifies the Docker image to use, and the replica field specifies how many instances of this service should run. And again, the environment field is a nested mapping with environment variables that all the services need. And moving on to the merge operation. So each services uses the shared config that you see here, and we have used the merger key. And again, this less than double less than symbol is the merger key, and the shared config, the alias, is the alias that refers back to the anchor. So when YAML processes it, it takes all the fields from the anchor and adds them to the current service mapping. So the web service gets image, replicas, and the environment automatically. And then we added the unique fields. Like after the merge, each service adds its own unique field. So the name field here that you see, web service is a unique. So you can see all these has unique services, and the port field is also unique because each service needs to listen to a different port. Like you see here, it has 8080, 3000, 9000. So the description field is optional here, and it shows that you can add extra fields beyond the merged commit. So why this approach is better? Why is this approach better? So without anchors, the file would look like, for example, the web service would have the image, right? The replicas, everything. For example, it would look like, I can even just show you this one here. Control C, sorry, Windows C, followed by the web service, enter. This is how it actually looks like. Just imagine this is not going to be part of your code because we are commenting it, and we are not using any anchors at this point of time. So this is how it actually looks like. And just imagine this is how it's going to look. And the next thing, which is your same again, what I'm talking is like in the come on. Okay. In the web service, I have all these files, and in the app service, I will have all these files. In the worker service, I will have all these files. So the anchor-based version is a shorter, cleaner, and much easier to maintain. So if you need to change the image version, or if you want to add a new variable, new environment variable, and you only edit the anchor once instead of three times. Again, before we end, quick key takeaways. So anchors that we mark here or the reusable block of YAML content. So this is a reusable block of YAML content. The aliases that you see here with the star thing, the ampersand thing. So they reference those blocks to reuse them. And then the merger keys, that is this double less than symbol or the greater than symbol, whatever you call. It's which side you look at it, but I'll call it as merge key, which is double less than symbol, which combines the anchor content with the new files. So you can use Anchor to reduce duplication and improve maintainability, and you can use clear anchor names for better readability, and you can avoid reusing anchors, which can make files confusing. So quick summary and to wrap up. So day 4 is all about the making YAML files more efficient. So we learned that anchors let you define a block of content once and aliases let you reuse it. And the merge key combines the reused content with new fields to create variations of a common pattern. So this skill is especially useful in real-world DevOps and CloudWorks, where the configuration files often contain repeated patterns. And again, by using anchors and aliases correctly, you can write cleaner, more maintainable YAML files and reduce the risk of mistakes when making updates. So in the days ahead, we will continue building on these ideas as we move into more complex YAML structures, which are used in Docker Compose, Kubernetes, and CI/CD systems. So until I see you all in the next video, it's bye-bye from Vasant Shanmugam and your favorite Vasant Cloud Talk YouTube channel. Take care and bye-bye.